Timmy, thank you so much for coming back. I love talking to you because, as I was saying, people should reach out to someone like you and get a consultation and actually talk to you about their personal finance. But maybe it's the nature of the topic. Sometimes people are a bit afraid. So this is sometimes the first kind of entry point they get into talking about personal finance. There's something you said in our last episode, which I would advise people to listen to. It's one of those things. It's very simple, but it really blew my mind. As most sort of wisdom does, which is, if you went out about your day, never checking like the time, you'd be late everywhere, right? You'd be late everywhere. And so you check your time to kind of work out where you are. And I guess when it comes to personal finance, people who never look at their account and see where they're at, they just kind of keep this, just wonder why they're in debt for so long, why they're not really hitting any goals, etc. So that's one of the misconceptions people have. What are other big misconceptions, finance misconceptions people have that you've heard?
Well, I think it's a really important comparison you've just made between like checking your watch or checking your calendar and checking your bank account, because it's true. It is. A lot of us are kind of flying blind when it comes to our finances and just hoping that when we tap the card, the transaction goes through. I've definitely been through that period of my life before. And yeah, it's just a reality that people attach emotions to money in a way that they don't to time and to dates. But I think one of the ways that you can get around that is to just go with the little and often approach. I posted a video on socials a while back about how, rather than checking in with my finances once a month, because you get paid and then that's maybe the one time you look at it, if at all, I check in weekly. And I found that weekly approach tends to resonate with people more, because rather than go with the standard advice of going back 3 to 6 months and looking at all of your transactions, you can just look back over the last 7 days. You can literally on a Sunday just look back to Monday and go, how much money did I spend? And if you did overspend in any areas, or if any unexpected expenses come up, you can then make a plan for the next 7 days and see how you'd like to spend money in that time period. And you can actually sync that with your calendar as well. So if it looks like you're attending a party or going to go out for dinner, you can factor that into the money that you're spending. So that's one thing I would say. Checking your finances little and often is really, really useful. Oh yeah, the other thing about that is that because you're looking over a shorter time period, you can more easily remember like what you spent money on. Whereas I don't really know if I spent money on this time last month, but I can sort of remember what I did last week. So that's why that's important. I think another important principle when it comes to personal finances is that yes, it's okay to be defensive when it comes to finances. So that's budgeting, that's saving, and so on. But I think sometimes you need to play attack as well.
How does one play attack with their finances?
Well, I think that in the UK, it's not just here, but like in the UK, there is a big culture around cutting. So getting rid of things so that you can afford more things. So it's like, okay, yeah, stop. The avocado on toast is like the classic example of that. Stop eating the avocado on toast, cancel your Netflix, this, that, and the other. And I think like you can do that, but you can only cut down to zero. Like if your spending is here, then you remove this thing, you can only cut down to zero. But if you can think about making more money, increasing your income, then you can do more things. And you don't need to get rid of the things that you already have. So I see making more money as attack. I see investing as a form of attack. So these are like offensive plays. And then the defensive plays are like the budgeting, the saving, and so on.
Would you consider getting out of debt an attack. And I thought it would be good to talk about that, because I think when we do these sort of sessions and when people see finance, it's kind of like seeing health for a lot of people. It registers as like, oh, that thing I need to sort out, and then they kind of run away. So if someone's still watching, well done for still watching. But I think when you're talking about sort of growing, making more money, etc., the starting point is often the issue for people. So most young people, I think, are in debt, especially if they're into university. So because you're in debt, there is that sort of, when you're playing a game and you're so far behind, you're like, forget about the rules, just flip the table over. Mm-hmm. Some people do have that approach when it comes to personal finance. So how does one, of course, debt is complicated. People have lots of different types of debt. But just speaking generally, let's say you're someone who, you're £1,000 a year overdraft, right? You're £2,000 a year overdraft. So the first thing for you is almost, how do I get out of overdraft first so that I can actually start building money, wealth, savings, whatever you call it. How would you advise someone, who's in that situation?
Yeah, so the sort of debt that we're talking about is like high interest consumer debt. So that's overdrafts which have APRs of about 40%.
Which is crazy.
And credit cards which have APRs of about 21%. And the thing there is that if you're in these types of debt, because the interest rates are so high and so much higher than what you could expect to receive from savings or even from investments. Like if you're making 40% a year returns on investments, go work for a hedge fund or something. Because the APRs are so high, you end up losing money from paying all that interest back. So for the overdraft specifically, I would say if you can, stop using the account that the overdraft is in. That might not require you to change bank, but for that specific account, I remember when I left university, I had a specific graduate account that had an overdraft in, but I had other accounts with that same bank as well. Stop using it. The next step is to, if you haven't done it already, look at how much you actually need to pay back in the overdraft, and then you pick a date in the future. You can pick a year, for example, and you make just a plan of, okay, if I pay back this much money, so the amount that the overdraft is in, divided by 12.
That's £1,200.
Yeah. If I pay back £100 a month, it'll probably be just over 100 because you have to factor in the interest. If I pay it back almost like a bill every month, then I'll clear the overdraft. What is difficult with overdraft is if you continue to use that account for day-to-day purposes, the amount in it is going to be changing, and so it's going to be difficult to know what you're paying back. So when it comes to debt, I like to isolate the account or the card that is in question, and then treat paying it off like a bill, like a monthly bill. If your credit rating allows, then you can take out what's called a money transfer credit card. Have you heard of one of these before?
No.
Okay, so a money transfer credit card is a credit card that lets you withdraw money from it for a fee. The fee is normally around the 3 to 4% of the balance that you're transferring range. So if you transfer £1,000 off a money transfer credit card, then you'll pay a fee of £30. So £1,030 will come off. And you can use that money to clear the overdraft in full. And then you can pay off the money transfer credit card. And a lot of them are 0%. And so long as you make the minimum payment every month and then clear the card in full by the end of the 0% period, then you don't have to pay any additional interest over and above that 3 or 4% fee.
And how long is normally the interest-free period, that sort of?
I have a money transfer credit card which has been 0% for years.
Oh, wow.
They just keep extending it. Some are like that. But when it comes to 0% cards, somewhere in between the 18 to 24 month range is sort of normal.
So is that sort of good for almost consolidating your debts as well? If you've got all these different debts, 1,000 here, £200 from that time you went crazy at Domino's, and you guys didn't pay it back. You got all this, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I got to pay off because they're accruing, whatever. If you can consolidate them, pay it off with this money transfer credit card,
Yeah.
and then you can just focus on this is the one sort of place where all my debts are, and me paying it off is actually building my credit score because it's I imagine it's doing that, or it doesn't do that.
Yeah, so paying, depending on how much debt you have outstanding, reducing the amount of debt that you owe does have a positive impact on your credit rating because it reduces your credit utilization. And a credit utilization across all of your borrowings of below 30% is generally seen as good. I mean, there are different credit rating agencies in the UK, but if you can keep it below 30%, just for like basic illustration purposes, wherever you borrow money from, whatever your balance is, if you borrow 30% or less of that balance, then that's seen as favorable. So yes, paying off your debt will have a positive impact on your credit rating. We talk about overdrafts, but credit cards are a similar thing. If you have money on a credit card, I would stop using that credit card if possible. I would isolate it. I would have a look at how much money there needs to be paid back, and then I make a plan to pay that off every month, almost like a bill. And if you come into any lump sums or windfalls, then you can throw additional money at it. But similar to the money transfer credit card, should leave that in.
Worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But similar to the money transfer credit card situation, there are also balance transfer credit cards, and they work in a similar way, where you can move credit card debt from a high interest credit card to a 0% balance transfer credit card, again for a fee. And then the high interest card is cleared, and then you just focus on paying off the balance transfer credit card. And there are 0% deals for balance transfer credit cards as well.
I mean, I'm just thinking as you're speaking, all this advice is so helpful, but the difficulty is for the guy who has, £1,200, who's £1,200 in overdraft. I guess for him, he's just like, I'm done. How am I going to pay this off? And he's not aware of all these different.
Yeah, no, there's so much of money is psychological. And, in the conversations I've had with people, helping them to get out of debt, the issue isn't the numbers. The issue is like the guilt and like the stuff that they've spent, or like the situation that has led them to get into the debt situation. And I do think talking to people about your finances and talking to people that you trust is a great first step. You'd be surprised. You might talk to someone and they might say to you, yeah, like I am also in debt, or I've been in a similar situation before. This is how I got out of the situation. I think we keep things inside because we fear judgment, but it's not. I just see the numbers at the end of the day.
And when it comes
percentages.
to finances and that guilt, how does someone deal with that guilt? Because again, this whole podcast, you're gonna have all this. I mean, you've mentioned so much advice already and given so much value. But no one's going to do anything about any of this stuff if you feel guilt and you don't really, or shame. So in the kind of clients you've had or people you've worked with, what's been some of the success stories of people addressing that and actually having some breakthrough?
Yeah. Well, I would highly recommend people to check out Brené Brown's work on shame. She's probably the most expert person in the world on that, and she's just done a few TED Talks on it. But essentially, the way that you address emotions like guilt and shame is you separate the thing you've done from the person that you are. Like, you are not reducible to any one thing or situation that you've been in your life. And instead of saying, I am in debt, which is kind of like being in prison, you say that I have debt. It's a bit like having a cold. You can. It's not.
Bit close to home, that one.
Yeah. So it's not part of you. Is the point I'm making, and it's something that with a plan will pass. And also, a lot of the people I speak to that are in debt, it's not just one card. It's maybe 3 or 4. So the first thing I'll do with them is I'll go, we are going to open up a spreadsheet, and we're going to write down the name of every single company that you've borrowed money from, the total balance available on all those cards, the amount that you've borrowed on all those cards, and the APRs and the minimum payments if they know them. And even just doing that, just knowing all of the different amounts that you have outstanding and which one's the highest APR, which one's the lowest APR, which one's the biggest balance, which one's the lowest balance. That was the first time they've seen all of that in one place. They often would not have wanted to do that because it's painful, but they're there with someone holding their hand, so they do it. That is a great first step. Then you can do the either pay it off like a bill thing, or if your credit rating allows, the money transfer or the balance transfer approach. You have debt. You're not in debt.
Yeah, that's super key. I can give a very simple example. I think most small business owners will know this. When you got a business you just started, again, to quote another sort of interesting shift in thinking, there's working in the business, there's working on the business, right?
Yeah.
Most business owners, if you're small, maybe you're a solo person, you're forever working in the business, right? You're the guy doing accounts. You're the guy doing social media posts. You pretend to be your own PA. There's all these different things you're doing. You've got 6 different roles, and so it's very, very hard to know what's going on with the actual business. How you're too close to the woods to see the trees, whatever the phrase is. And so oftentimes I felt when I first started out, there would be a year where I'm like, are we making money? I see money coming in, I see money going out, but in between running around and fulfilling all the 6 roles in the company, what's happening with our money? Are we making money? Are we losing money? Are we on track to break even? What is going on? And then what you immediately attach to that is shame, because you're like, I should know. On my bio it says founder and CEO, right? I should know this, right?
Should try and avoid the word should and need to. And replace with want to or get to in life. That's just good life advice. I mean,
that's good. That's a good bookmark. And so you'd get to that stage where you're like, this is something I should have a grip on. And then at that stage, you just feel overwhelmed. Because now you're like, okay, so first I need to find out where I am at. Then it's where I am good. And then how do I chart a path forward? Now, those are 3 separate things, but your mind, as you imagine, clumps it into one. So you're like, and all it takes and all it took in that time was for me to sit down with an accountant who just walked me through everything. And even that act of just knowing where things are, you suddenly feel like, okay, at least I know. And that knowledge frees you from that kind of existential sort of angst that you're in of, what's going to happen? Is everyone going to randomly die next month? So I think it's a really important exercise, actually, to just, whether it's with someone or without, just to kind of put things on paper so you can visually see exactly where you're at. Now, once people do that, what's the next step?
So we talked about listing. Is this with regards to debt?
Yeah, with debt. Yeah, I want to really attack the debt kind of point.
Okay.
So you've written things down. You're aware of sort of where you're at. Altogether you're like, okay, I owe £26,000, right? Where am I gonna get? Where am I gonna get that money?
Yeah. So, you've got the spreadsheet, or the paper and pen of all the amounts. You can use 0% options to reduce some of that, at least to get rid of some of the APRs, right? So if you use like a 0% balance transfer credit card, you'll still owe money on a credit card, but at least that particular portion of debt will be at 0% rather than at 20 something odd. The approach to paying off multiple debts, there are 2. One is called the snowball and the other is called the avalanche method.
I love it.
Yeah. With the snowball method, what you do is you sort your debts from the smallest balance to the biggest balance. And every month you pay off as much as you can afford of the smallest balance, and you pay the minimums on all the rest. Once the smallest balance is gone, you move on to the next smallest balance, you attack the next smallest balance, pay the minimums on the rest, and you just keep chipping away at it like that. This isn't mathematically the best way to pay off multiple debts. But psychologically, it's very powerful, because if you have £100 on a credit card and you clear it, then you just never have to worry about that particular borrowing again. And I would say on balance, this is the method that maybe resonates most with people when I say it to them. The avalanche method is where you sort your debts from the most expensive, the highest APR to the lowest APR. So you're saying, I'm not going to look at the balances. I'm just going to look at the debt that's costing me the most every month. And so maybe you might do, like a 40, then a 35, then a 20, whatever. Similar method. Every month you pay off as much as you can afford from the most expensive debt, and then you pay the minimums on all the rest. And you just keep doing that for the next most expensive and next most expensive until you've paid off the debt. And you just really get into the mindset that you are, it's a monthly thing. You're going to pay this thing off in months, not days or weeks. Yeah. And it becomes part of your monthly finance routine, which we can get onto, which is, when you get paid, you get paid, you pay off your bills. Paying off your cards is just another bill. You can also automate paying off credit cards, but I'm more of a manual guy. I prefer to actually do things because sometimes when I automate stuff and then it happens automatically, but like not quite in the way that I envisioned, it's like a bit jarring. So I like to have that control over stuff.
Well, this is good, and again, I think there's a lot of value there. The reason why I wanted to dwell on that is because I suppose I just want to. I'm thinking about the viewers, right, or the listeners. I want them to sort of, everyone to get to the starting line at least, right? And sometimes that makes you feel like you're way behind. Yeah. So when you see financial advice, you're just like, not for me. I'm stuck in the mud, as it were. So I think that helps to free people from that. Yeah. I know we can talk about now how you manage money, I suppose, and again, at risk of alienating some viewers. In fact, I shouldn't. I was going to give an ideal profile of a viewer, but I shouldn't, because then if you're not there, you might click off, right? Mm-hmm. So whoever's watching, what are some of the most effective ways to think about building a financial routine, to build a good, what I would call sort of financial hygiene, right? Like what are, you wake up, you brush your teeth, some people don't brush their teeth every day. Let's start there. But that's another podcast for another show. Yeah. What are some key things that you think as part of building a nice sort of financial hygiene routine that ensures you don't fall into debt, you're making good money, you've got some goals ahead of you that you might be kind of saving towards? Let's talk about some of that.
So I think there are a few methods that people can use to systemize their finances. And the great things about systems is that once you establish a routine, then it just becomes about maintaining it rather than having to start from scratch each time. So one system that I like is very simple, and it's the 2 bank account strategy. And essentially, rather than doing everything in one bank account, so you're getting paid in and you're spending, but then your savings are also in there, like you separate your bank accounts out. It could be minimum 2, but I have multiple. I have different bank accounts for different.
How many bank accounts do you have?
Oh, because also I'm like a creator, right? So I like open new accounts in like the double digits.
Okay. Yeah. Because my mum, when I was growing up, would have like 6, 7 accounts, and I'm like, where like, she's trying to make that money spread, like.
Yeah, different. Open over time.
Yeah.
So you don't want to tank your credit rating, but like minimum 2, and essentially the bank account that you get paid into, try and have a different bank account that you spend from. So when I get paid, my money will come into one bank account, and then that same on or just after payday, I will then send like pocket money to myself to a separate card, and then that's the card that I spend from. And what that avoids is all your money just kind of sloshing around in one account, and then you doing everything from that one account. My bills also come out of that account that I get paid into, but that's automated. So once the money gets paid in, bills come out. Maybe you're paying off debt. That's like another bill. I pay myself like another bill, and then it's done. And then you can use what you're applying to that spending card is a principle called Parkinson's law, which is normally used in reference to time, which says that the amount of time allocated, the amount of time it takes to complete a task will expand to the amount of time that's allocated to it. And the same happens with money, and the same thing happens with food as well. Like you fill up your plate, you're going to eat more. So you put the money that you want to spend for that month, it could be £100 a week, whatever it is, onto a separate card, and you just spend from that. And I think the brain has a remarkable way of, just adjusting to your spend. If you want to save money, have a separate account for savings. If you want to invest, have a separate investment account. So there's nothing wrong with having different accounts. If you have a joint account with a partner, have that as a separate one too. Then the second method, and that this feeds on from the paying off of bills, is do you sync your bills to come out on the same day?
After you said that in our last podcast, I tried to. One of them, I had to email them. So I had to go on their website to do it. And that small hurdle meant I was like, nah.
Okay.
But most of my bills come out at the end of the month.
Okay.
Or at the start of the month, which is a bit annoying, but they're all within 3 days of each other.
Yeah, so I have a bill day. My bill day is the first of the month because I get paid towards the end of the month. And so it's like get paid, and then I know that on that first of the month, most things are going to come out. I've got a couple ones that like can't be moved and stuff. And you know that after that last day that the last bill comes out, all the money that's in your bank account is going to stay. All the money that's in your bank account is going to be subject to, to deletions. I can't think of a better word than that. The money's not going to get deleted. If it does, if the money is kind of staying level, and then you check it one day, and it's like minus £25, and you can spot that, and you can do something about it. Maybe there's a subscription you'd forgotten about, or something like that. As an addition to that, there are some banks which will let you set up pots and will let you pay bills from pots, vault spaces. They have different words for it. So whichever bank you're using, see if you're able to use their like pots feature to put the amount of money you like top up the pot with an amount of money, and then you can assign bills to that pot. This gets around the having to move the payday thing, because as long as the pot is topped up, then the bill money will just come out of that, and I find that quite useful.
This is also helpful because it's all very doable, and to your point, it's just a psychology. Like that Parkinson's law, is that what you called it, right? It's a game changer for dieting, because people are like, I just can't change your plate size. Because once you see shreddies falling over that small bowl, you're having too much, right? People be pushing the cereal down.
Yeah. Are you a milk first or a cereal first person?
We're getting along. I don't want to split things up. I think the only right way is to obviously put the cereal first.
Yeah.
These people that put milk first.
I don't trust the milk first people. I think they're planning something.
I think that decision making is very questionable. Because especially, not to get to the rabbit hole, but you brought it up. If you're having cocoa
just a light cereal,
it just floats at the top.
Yeah.
Crazy people. But anyways, that's let's not talk about them.
Yeah.
It's game changing because it I think halves the difficulty actually of dieting, because now you have to go have a second plate. So mentally you're like, okay, I can see myself going back, because the plate. So people can do that, and it all it takes is saying, you know what, this Sunday coming up, for 2 hours, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to go open my Monzo, my Tide, my Starling, or whatever it is, my Barclays app, learn the settings, and actually move things around. Create a pot here. Like that's so empowering to know that you can actually get a hold of your finances with just 2 hours of sitting down and going, let me actually organize this, and maybe it's even 1 hour.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, and this is the third point I was going to make, which is if you have multiple accounts for different purposes and you have a bill day, then yes, once a month for most people you're being paid, and once a month if you do the bill day thing, all your bills will come out. But then when you do the weekly check-ins, that doesn't have to take very long at all, because you've already created the system, and there's you can use a free budgeting app. There's quite a few, like on the App Store and on Google Play. Just use one of the open banking budgeting apps. Link your bank accounts to it, and then even that, a lot of them will send you like daily notifications just to let you know what your balance is, or what like your top transactions were for the past week. It's so quick. It's so quick, and it's free. So I'm all about creating systems. I have learned this the hard way. Like, I've made lots of financial mistakes in my life, and if you can just create a system that's easy to follow and requires you to set it up once, but then just maintain it after that, then you can just go ahead with living your life. Because as I said, when it comes to personal finances, you aren't going to budget your way to prosperity or to wealth. This is just hygiene.
Correct.
This is just,
You're fine.
This is just hygiene. This is like, as you said, brushing your teeth or showering. This is this part of being an adult.
Yeah.
So you can free up your time so you can actually go to work, making money, spending time with people you care about, working on your health. Like, this stuff is not supposed to take up all of your time at all.
This is great. I mean, we're flowing so seamlessly, because this is where I was going to take us is, well, the importance of doing these things is hygiene. But the reason why you have good hygiene is because you're pleasant to be around. You're healthy, as it were. And there's this term online you hear all the time, like financial freedom. Everyone should be financially free. And I suppose, once we've done this, the reason why we're doing all these things is so that we can make steps forward towards sort of being in charge of our own sort of financial destiny, feeling like you're more in control, like, your habits don't have you, stuff like that. So I guess from your perspective, like, what is financial freedom? Is it just misinformation that we've all kind of drunk, and is it actually possible? And then what are the steps we can start taking towards it, right? Because this idea of, budgeting isn't going to make you rich is very, very true. What is going to make us prosperous or rich and stuff like that?
So the way that I like to think about financial freedom is it's essentially time freedom. So we're trying to, all we really have is time. And in order to spend our time, we have to allocate a certain number of hours a week. This is a situation most people are in, to working so that we can earn money, so that we can pay for things, and so that we can live our lives. And like, hopefully we enjoy doing that work and doing that job, but you still have to do that exchange of, I work, I earn money, and I pay for things. Now, the situation for a lot of people is that they're living paycheck to paycheck, which means that they get paid and they spend all their money, which means that they're beholden to the person who's paying them. They have to wait for their next paycheck before they can do anything again. The way that you build up time freedom is by first saving and then investing enough money whereby you can live off the money that you've saved. So you do it by building up assets which pay you. And the assets can be like stocks and shares. They can be, stocks or funds that will pay you dividend or a yield. It could be a property that pays you a rental income. But essentially, once you can disconnect your ability to make money from you physically having to work for it, then you're financially free, or you're time free, because now you can just kind of live your life. Now, to achieve something like that, that's not an overnight thing. That's something that you achieve over the course of many years. So what I'd say to people is, if you want to be free before you get to that financial freedom bit, you can just do a job that you enjoy. And this is something that I tried to do like very early on. If you're going to allocate that 40 hours a week to working, then at least let it be bearable.
Yeah.
Or if you don't enjoy the job, at least do a job with people that you enjoy working with, so you enjoy the journey. And the reason why I say this is because, and I'm guilty of this, I think our culture can be very focused on like, yeah, if I just keep doing this thing, then it'll be better tomorrow. If I just keep doing this thing, it'll be better tomorrow. Actually, the present moment is all you have. I think it's important to do both. I think it's important to enjoy your day-to-day and be fulfilled in your day-to-day, whilst also creating systems and having plans for the future.
That's good. Drop some philosophy there. Tomorrow is tomorrow.
You're about to drop some philosophy as well.
If I can get the words out. tomorrow. Yeah, you're right. Tomorrow's always today, right? Or something like that. Yeah, it's really sad the fact that people have attached financial freedom to a number. I think that's they think it's the same for everybody. So in their mind, it's like 1 million. Once I'm a millionaire, that's when I'm financially free, because of all these things you hear online. Those ads. I don't know who I offended or what I clicked when I open YouTube and there's a guy selling me a course that's going to make me how to be financially free. I'm just like,
yeah. I'm sure the course is making them a lot of money.
I'm pretty sure, right? Because they come up every single time I'm on YouTube. But yeah, no, it's not a random number, just the same for everybody, is it? Everyone's individual journey is kind of slightly different. For some people, clearing debt and being able to go on holiday 2 times a year, that's kind of the height of their sort of financial dreams. Not everyone wants to be a millionaire. Not everyone wants to earn money when they sleep, like all that sort of thing. But there is a reality that we have to boost incomes, right? So again, from your experience, from people you've maybe spoken to, your clients you've had, what are easy ways folks can think about sort of just making more money? If I'm listening to this and I just go, maybe I want to, like, what are good side hustles from what you've seen that kind of boost people's income?
Yeah, I'm going to try and address this question without contradicting what I said about being fulfilled in your work, because I do think it's important to be fulfilled in your work, but it is not through being fulfilled that you are paid. You are paid to solve problems for other people and to serve other people. And whilst loving what you do and being fulfilled is good on your side, because you don't want to burn out and you want to be doing something that you're motivated to do on their side, whether this is your employer or someone you're providing a product or service to, they simply don't care how much you love or don't love doing what you're doing. So I think you make more money. Before we get onto side hustles, if we're just talking plainly about making money, the thing that most people need to look at is their job, because there are 30 million PAYE earners in the UK. So that's the situation most people are in. You get paid more in your job by speaking to your direct report and telling them that you want to take on more responsibility, essentially. They'll know exactly what you're talking about, and you come up with a 6 to 12 month plan based off measurable milestones that you do, such that when you come into that pay rise conversation, you've got like a file folder of all your wins. That's the standard way of doing that. But you might get a small pay jump at that point, or they might not have the money to pay you more. So you need to be prepared to move. The biggest pay jumps you get in jobs are by going to a different company. And I think it's fairly standard now I think the average person works from like 11 or 12 jobs over the course of their life. So gone are the days when you just work one job. For most people, it's going to be about getting a promotion or changing job. And when you change job, it doesn't mean that you need to go into a more senior position. Simply by moving industry, doing the same thing, but for a different company, a company that's perhaps bigger and has more offices all over the world, or is in a high growth space, you could be paid more to do the exact same thing.
Okay, it's that emotional thing again of realizing that you know, companies talk about work being a family, and this is our community, you know.
But
But
if you left, they would hire someone.
they would announce it the
within a
next
week.
week.
Yeah, within a week they'd hire
They
someone
would
else.
literally take your little pot plant on your desk and be like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, but that's the work side of it, right? So it's like the monetary and the social are two different things, because a business needs money to survive as well, and it needs
Correct.
people to work in it. So yes, they will hire someone else, but that doesn't mean that they don't like you.
Yeah,
and in
yeah.
fact, the thing that you take after you've earned all the money and you saved and stuff, the thing that you take away from a workplace is the relationships anyway.
That's
like
it.
in my journey as a business owner, some of my like best clients have been former colleagues, and like I didn't even have to do anything remarkable during my time working with them. Just simply working on a project with someone
Yeah.
and being pleasant and nice to work with was enough to make them remember me 10 years later, like
Correct.
genuinely. So
Yeah.
the relationships are key.
I mean, I can speak at length about that. You know, it's everything. It's everything. To your point, folks who work with us, that we've worked with, are all almost certainly. I don't. It's funny because sometimes we code reach to people, and when the team does it, I'm just like, this is a waste of time because I've never replied to a cold email. That's probably a bad thing. I'm sure I should reply, but I just don't. I work with people I know and like. That's kind of, and that's the luxury, I suppose, of doing your own thing, is that you can set terms. And if I don't really like somebody, I'm not going to work with them. That's just it. And so, yeah, I'm saying all that to say people should receive the confidence to say, you know what, I need to earn more money.
Yeah.
And if I go to my boss and say, can we create a plan
Yep.
where you're comfortable with me taking on more responsibility in 12 months or 24 months, whatever it is, and they're like, if they're like, no, like you can't earn more, we don't have any more money, there's no progression, that means there's no career progression where you're working.
And it's not personal.
Correct.
It's not personal.
It might just be a numbers.
Businesses have bank accounts too, and yeah, maybe they're not going to tell you what their financial plan is, but maybe they just don't have the money to pay you, or because there are parts of a business that you can work in which are almost maintenance functions.
Yeah.
And so by paying you more, the business itself will not make more money. And then there are parts of business that you can work in which are like sales functions or actually bring in the money. And if you work in that side of the business, so like the maintenance function is something like maybe like operations or finance. So that's just something that you have to do. But if you work for let's say a PR company or something, and you bring in a new client that pays a new monthly retainer or something, then you'll have, when you go into your meeting, you could be like, yeah, but I brought in this client.
Correct.
And this added this much more income to the business. And when it's us, we take these things personally. But if you had like a gardener or something, you wouldn't like pay them more money to garden. You would try and keep that cost as low as possible because it's a maintenance function for your.
Don't say that to
your
people
home.
because to them, businesses are bad and evil and are trying to extrapolate value and pay the least possible. And you see people haggling with a painter to try and get him down to the bare. And I'm like, so you want to pay the cheapest?
Yeah. So the point I'm trying to make is we do it too. Like it happens to us, but we understand. We do it as well. Some other things to add to that. Money kind of isn't real. So
it's all an illusion.
So it's relative. And so if you go for that new job and they offer you a salary, you don't have to, it's not fixed. Do you know, it's just an agreement between you and them. And when anyone who's like paid a mortgage in the last couple of years, anyone who runs a business will understand this money isn't real point. I'm not trying to like obfuscate or be awkward. It's just the case that like over the last couple years, you're living in the same house, but because interest rates have gone up, your mortgage is now £100, a couple £100 more per month. Where did that money come from? Equally, when you want to sell a service to someone in a business, you can just decide how much you want the fee to be. And if they accept it, then great. So it's an agreement between you and them. When you're offered a salary in a job, you don't have to accept the first amount of money. You need to, because you said we're talking about making more money. I think you need to be specific about the amount of money that you want to make. If you want a starting point, if we do an inverse of the 50-30-20 principle, which says that you spend 50% of your money on your needs, 30% on wants, and 20% on savings, try to take home double what it costs to keep the lights on every month. How do you work that out? You figure out what your monthly expenses are, and then you take an income tax calculator and you put in an annual gross salary, and then you figure out the annual gross salary that will give you a monthly take-home pay, which is double your monthly living costs. And then you just have that as a number that you either hunt for in your job search or that you'll accept or negotiate for in the... I hope this isn't like Captain Obvious stuff, but this is stuff that I was not doing when I was younger. I don't think it's
Captain Obvious at all. I think people will be... Again, people play the game of, I just need to earn as much as I possibly can. And then what they do is, if they're on 30K, you know, they get used to 30K and their whole life morphs around the 30K they earn. And so and then they're in debt, and then they start doing 3-4 side hustles where they're, you know, because they actually enjoy that and they don't really like their job. So they're not trying to get high in their job. They're actually like, I'm fine. I don't want to lose that 30K. And all the time they could use to maybe get a new job is spent on the side hustles. So folks are in a trap of just like, I know I'm not earning enough at work. I don't have the will to try and negotiate or go up. I don't have the talent, the skills, whatever. For whatever reason, I don't want to do it. And all my time is taken up doing these things that bring, you know, £200 here, £300 here. Yeah. When in reality, if they had a number in their head that, you know what, to make things work, I need to be earning around 46K. Yeah. How do I boost my skills and invest in myself?
And I love the 46 because it's like a weird and specific number, right? So it sounds, to the person you're speaking to, it sounds like you've come in and you know what you want from the job. So there's not accepting the first number that you're given. There's actually putting a salary into an income tax calculator and calculating double what your monthly living costs are as a starting point. But on the financial freedom piece, the way that you actually build your wealth over time is by increasing your salary but keeping your lifestyle the same.
Let's talk about that, like how you cut your cloth according to your size, let's say. I forgot, again, all my smart or wise quotes have left me today because I'm going to clumsily say this, but I think listeners and viewers will know exactly what I'm saying, and that is that happiness is like expectations minus reality or plus reality. Essentially, put it this way, if I'm very happy, and I've had to work on this, if I'm very happy with like a t-shirt from Uniqlo that's £15.
That's literally what I'm wearing.
Yeah, I wore it yesterday.
Okay, yeah.
I went to Uniqlo. I bought 12, and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
That's my clothes sorted, right? Yeah. If I'm happy with £15, heavy cotton t-shirt from Uniqlo, £20 trousers, maybe nice shoes that are like 100 and something quid or £200, whatever it is. If that's for me my goal, I will always be rich, right? But if I like a Prada shirt that pretty much looks the same, but maybe there's a little random badge on the back, right? Trainers that cost £500, whatever it is, you can see where rich for me is just a few steps. It's just a few longer steps away, right? And so one of the key ways to also achieve financial freedom, I suppose, is to cut your cloth according to your size, or to really work out what your goal and aim is. Not saying anyone shouldn't want the Prada. If you want the Prada, go for it, right? But if you're thinking, how do I quickly get to the stage that I'm financially free, or I feel like part of it might be changing your taste so as to achieve it, because if you achieve financial freedom by 86 and then you're like, I got the Prada bag, and then you're like, after heaven, really? Yeah. Was it worth it?
Yeah. That was a really good impression.
Thank you.
Yeah, so financial free. Yeah, look, there is a war being waged on our wallets, and obviously there's things in life that you have to spend money on, like your living costs, like food, like clothing to a certain degree. But then pretty much everything else you spend money on is a business convincing you to give your money to them forever. And then, whatever you get back in return, like, you better use it or want it. Otherwise, you've literally just given your money away. And like, we all spend money on things that we don't need, like all the time. I think that this happens because when you have the absence of a plan, then you become everyone else's plan. You become everyone else's financial freedom plan. So if you have an amount of money that you'd like to get to, by saving and investing, and you have a time in the future, it could be in 10 years' time, a time in the future that you'd like to get it to, that focuses you. And it means that when you just things like the Prada t-shirt become less of a priority because you know what you're aiming towards. I do think that when it comes to money, having specific numbers in your mind, whether it's a savings goal or a salary or a time by which you would like to have paid debt off by, it's like really hugely psychologically beneficial. I do long distance running, and I think if I just had to run just randomly, it would be really hard. But like, they've thought about this too, whereby every mile there's like a sign saying what mile, or if you use like Strava, you can put your headphones in and then it lets you know. So
I knew you're a Strava guy.
Oh no, what are you?
I'm a Nike running guy.
A Nike running guy.
It's because I'm not a serious runner. That's what I'm waiting for you to say back.
Yeah. So I think being specific helps. But yeah, like, keeping your lifestyle the same, not succumbing to lifestyle creep. So keeping your rent or mortgage the same, keeping your bills broadly the same, keeping your clothing and food tastes broadly the same for a long time period. So like this is your expenses over time. They're just staying like that. But then your income is going up, and then you're stacking that and you're stacking that. That is what leads to you building wealth.
That's really good.
Over time. That's
really, really. I mean, I hate to sound like I'm sort of. I don't have an interest here, but I just think this conversation is brilliant because it's actionable.
And there's a point that I can give on top of that, which is that in the UK there are just over 4,000 ISA millionaires. So these are people who have balances of at least 7 figures in their ISAs. They've not put in 7 figures necessarily. What they've done is they've used up their ISA allowances every year in a stocks and shares ISA, and then those investments have grown over time, and then they've reached that 7-figure sum. When you have a 7-figure investment portfolio, you have a sum of money that's large enough so that you can live off the interest. That is financial independence. That is financial freedom, because you keep the principal sum, but then that amount of money that you can buy income. Like, you can have money that pays you money because it's invested in certain things, and then if it's in an ISA, that money is being paid to you tax-free year in, year out. So the analogy that I give is that it's like having an apple tree, and rather than chopping the tree down, you just live off the apples.
That's good.
It's possible to do that with money.
I mean, that feels like one of those final levels where your money's making money, and the money's, and you're living off the money that's the interest is paying, and it's just, and people do get there, right? People do get there.
Whereas if you spend down the principal sum, and there's the research that shows that, like, lots of people that win the lottery actually end up back at square one within 10 years, I think it is, or something.
I would like to test that out.
Yeah.
If I
test something in there. And this is because they get this windfall, but then they spend down the principal rather than putting that into assets, which will then pay them an amount of money for owning those assets. The amount at which we're advertised to as a generation is unprecedented. There's just so much consumerism, so much like you talked about the advert that you were shown, like the repetition, you need to buy this, you need to buy this, and it's not just on the TV and radio anymore. It's on YouTube, it's on your phone. You're playing a game on your phone, you're watching a video, you're on the tube, you're being advertised to. Hopefully conversations like these will serve as a countermeasure to that, where it's like you can spend money on stuff, but you can also like buy time as well. You can buy the freedom to do things. You can buy assets as well. There's nothing wrong with consumption. I just think there needs to be balance.
Correct. I totally agree. This is, I mean, it's for me, it's the action. It's the reason I mentioned actionable is because I haven't watched a few of this, even in preparing for this, sort of looking around and watching. I'm just always thinking of someone who doesn't want to listen, right? Who maybe is like I said, stuck in the mud. And I think there's enough here that wherever you are, there's something you can do, right? And I think that's the key thing, right?
Yeah. I just wanted to conclude with just the investing piece, because I know that this is something that people resonate with as well, and it's just that like, a way to build wealth is by investing, and this is, you're investing as well, so you're increasing your income, and then you're investing that additional money, so you're not just putting money aside and like ending up as an 80-year-old, as you said, but it's like you're increasing your income and then you're stacking at the same time. Very simple 3-step process. There's a number of different investment platforms out there. You can download them on your phone. To invest in the UK and to invest in a tax-free way, you sign up to an investment platform. You open an investment account within that investment platform. In the UK, that's the Stocks and Shares ISA. And then you can invest into one for as little as £25 a month. That's how much the investment platform I use lets me invest into. And I invest into what's called a tracker fund. And it's not, picking individual stocks and like trying to time the market and stuff. It's just a fund which tracks the global stock market that I can pay into almost like a monthly direct debit from £25 a month. Now, you can actually have, your financial freedom number, whatever that is. For most people, it's like 1 million, because that's like a big milestone number. But you can, from like the 500,000 mark, you can begin to receive a yield from it and have something that can actually supplement your lifestyle. You can take a compound interest calculator and you can actually put in a monthly savings amount or monthly investing amount. You can put in an annual rate of return. For the stock market, I like to use 7%.
Okay.
And then you can put in a number of years, and then it will let you know if you put in this much every month at this much average return for this long, this is how much you can expect to receive. I will recommend Nutmeg's compound interest calculator, because it's in pounds and pence, and it works really well. It produces the same numbers as if you were to do it in an Excel spreadsheet. I've compared the two. So again, when you're because I'll speak to people, they'll be investing, they'll be like, I'm just like chucking some money in. I don't know I'm doing it, just some person on YouTube said I should do it. No, like you can actually go, this is how much money I would like to get to by this point in time, and you can calculate that, and then that can inform how much money you're putting away.
It's crazy because £25, what Netflix and Prime?
Yeah.
Isn't that's it? One's like 20 quid, the other's like £6.
Yeah. And that's just to get started. As your income increases, as your skills increase, as your confidence increases, then you can increase that monthly amount too.
To me, this is just it's a gold mine. I really hope someone who was listening to this or watching this on YouTube kind of needed it, because I hope there's timestamps. I don't know what the editor person would do. If there's timestamps, like, go back and do the stuff, right? This is why we have these sort of expert, podcast where people just break down how the world works, right? And again, for minority communities that make up a large cohort of our audiences, this advice is doubly difficult to find, right? Because it's a group that historically has shied away from actually getting involved in wealth building in the UK. I remember growing up always being told, like, whatever money you make, get it back home, as it were, and it's not good. So yeah, it's good that we're having this conversation. Thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you for taking time to watch that video. Here at the Common Sense Network, we thrive on exposing you to different ideas. If you're someone who likes ideas, you like learning new things, hit the subscribe button now and turn on notifications so you're first to hear when we have a new video out.